from Obama, and I want to watch him together. I'm going to watch him on my phone here while you watch him on your screen at home. So let's go ahead and get it started here. Obama says,
flood a country's public square with enough raw sewage. You just have to raise enough questions, spread enough dirt, plant enough conspiracy theorizing.
It looks like they're going to have a worldwide lockdown again.
Okay, this article is going to change your life. You've been injured in a recent car accident. So car accident victims are getting paid major cash.
Fuck you, Salakia, goddamn devil.
No, what?
Salakia, I'm just going to wind that back. Shalom! First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakakadosh. Noble honors, the elders and apostles, the great millstone, who are teaching this truth with sincerity. And a shout out to Yahakim out there on the four corners of the earth proclaiming this truth. Braka the Yahweh, Braka the Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakakadosh, Brakatum. So, it looks like they probably are going to go with Monkey Butt as a worldwide lockdown. They are planning for another worldwide lockdown again, while also getting into a civil war and all kinds of things, as Obama's about to go into, as this video goes into. You know, just measuring the time diligently in and of itself. Well, you got this shit show of an election between Trump and Harris, which neither one of them speak any good. You know, they only speak evil. You know, because this is a wicked place. Esau Edom is about to be destroyed. And like everything else, its true wickedness is being revealed every day.
Raise enough questions, spread enough dirt, plant enough conspiracy theorizing that citizens no longer know what to believe.
are you listening yet?
Once they lose trust in their leaders, in mainstream media, in political institutions, in each other, in the possibility of truth, the game's won. The international order that we have worked for generations to build. Ordinary men and women are too small-minded to govern their own affairs. The order and progress can only come when individuals surrender their rights to an all-powerful sovereign.
Once you lose trust in media, once you lose trust in your political leaders, the game is won. Now that's exactly what's happening. We see this very clearly in our community and in the entire population.
This should not regard their kings or princes.
The final level boss.
Fuck Joe Biden has been the anthem for the last 4 years.
Complete destruction of the system that you know. Because they know that this empire is crumbling. It can't continue in the way that it has for the last century or even 2 centuries. They need it to completely burn down to the ashes so that upon that foundation, a raw foundation, a new future can be built. Now, we do see a lot of people in politics saying things right now like they're using the words world order, and they're discussing what America has built and what we have become over the last couple of years, over the last couple of decades, in which we were the ability to go into other countries and pirate from them. Take over, call for a regime change, send in some money or some weapons or some mercenaries or our own troops, get some oil contracts, get some raw resource contracts, funnel some American money through. We were running with impunity. And that day is at an end. And that should be a little bit concerning for you and me, for you the people, especially here in America, because we know that this world changes our world. And if you know anything about how an empire falls, there's going to be a lot of smoke, a lot of fire, a lot of violence, a lot of everything bad going on. So isn't that interesting? I made sure to tear this off and make sure that we talk about what Obama had to say there. Losing trust. Game is over. Now, you know that recently the World Health Organization, they declared monkeypox as an official outbreak. They said that this was a global concern. They've confirmed cases across all age groups and demographics. They say dozens of countries have this new form of a virus spreading. Now, what you do see is a lot of gruesome pictures. What you don't see is a lot of people falling on the ground from it. It's not the fatality rate doesn't seem to be there, but they are. That doesn't mean that they're not going to use this to the end. Now, you remember, there are scary things out there. I mean, AIDS, HIV, it used to be a death sentence, and now it's a life sentence. Now it means that you're in it for life. You're going to take medicine for the rest of your life. And don't the chemical pharmaceutical companies just love that type of a disease? One that they can get you hooked on that monthly recurring payment. Just like it's your Netflix for your body. It's your Hulu for the body. If you want to continue living, you better pay your monthly fee of X amount of dollars if you want to continue watching this program. So the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention have announced that they must stop the spread of the virus, which, do you think that's even possible, for stopping the spread of any anything now. We have seen that there's so much disjointed garbage out there and so much division, they couldn't stop a fly from crapping on an apple. The potential, they say, for a spread across the world is beyond worrying. The World Health Organization director has called on countries to prepare new and massive lockdown measures.
There it is.
China's taking it a little bit more seriously than everyone else just because you've got more kids in the classroom there. So inside of China, they don't want any sort of, if you've got a classroom of 60 kids, you don't want a fever spreading in there. It's going to knock out everyone. The teachers get sick. It's a whole big old mess. Everyone's running around with snotty noses. You just got a 2-pack of a classroom. Well, that's what China's got. But for the rest of the world, it's a little bit different. What I do expect is that they're going to use this for their goal very soon. The Pentagon is right now creating artificial intelligence tools that identify and fix what they call digital vulnerabilities. The Pentagon strategy, they say, will be to reduce human involvement in the cybersecurity realm through the use of AI. It will enhance control
Make sure
in
you
the central
have the
system.
you-know-what.
DARPA's competition, DEFCON 32, now that's a group of DARPA organizations and others that call on the white hats and the black hat hackers, get them together, give them cash prizes, say, hey, hack our systems, hey, do this, show us what you can do, expose some vulnerabilities, and then the government gobbles them all up like a troll and says, okay, now we're going to use them. Here's your non-disclosure agreement. We're going to put you in a black cell for the rest of your life if you ever talk about what you built. So they uncovered 22 unique vulnerabilities. 15 of them were automatically patched by AI-driven solutions. What they want is to be able to create the problem in a country and then create their own solution. So once the fire has already went through Europe, once the fires already went through Russia or China or wherever, they want to have the patches ready to roll out as soon as we have a problem starting to affect the USA. Now, that recent problem we had in technology, grounded planes, no one could use their cards, had a whole bunch of member services get messed up, data went down on different cellular networks. That could have been
Social security numbers.
Terry Adams from DARPA noted that artificial intelligence can make a fundamental difference. One team covering this unique flaw shows that cybersecurity is the new realm. Semi-finalist teams received $2 million in cash prizes. $30 million was up for competition. The challenge was addressing critical vulnerabilities in software and improvement of the overall system security simultaneously. They say that the current administration's National Security and Cyber Director released a report that recommends improvements to open source security in hospital, energy, and water systems. They say that there is a critical need right now to secure these vital sectors against cyber threats. Now, when I read that, and maybe I'm a little bit jaded here, okay? When I read them say, we need to tighten down all the hatches on the hospitals, electrical companies, water systems, cellular systems, all these different things, well, what does that tell me? That means we're about to have some problems in the hospitals and the electrical companies and the water companies, and so people are going to get sick, they're going to have blackouts, we're going to have a lack of care at hospitals, and even though those are completely disjointed and already broken systems, this is about to affect us in America. They're getting you ready for new things every day. Israel talking about their new weapon use, Iran talking about leveling that regime there. You just have all these things taking place. And what's America doing about it? Well, for you, the people, the government isn't doing squat. In fact, they're anti-squat. They are jumping and they're landing on your neck every time they jump. What we see is a completely blind population. And so when things do start to affect people, like your coworkers or maybe your family members that don't want to take it seriously, when things do start to affect them, it's screw loose time. They're not going to be able to take it. They won't be able to handle life. You're going to see a lot of problems arise, and those problems, unfortunately, but likely, could come knocking at your door. Why?
Like everything else, though, leads to civil unrest. People not regarding their kings or princes, right? Because, again, fuck Joe Biden has been the national anthem for the past 4 years. Okay, so they calmed it and called it Let's Go Brandon, but Let's Go Brandon and fuck Joe Biden mean the same thing. It doesn't matter, okay, language changed a little bit, they both mean the same thing. It's an age of distrust. Man, nobody fucking likes Joe Biden. No wonder why they switched it to Harris and Walz. And, well, you got even more sodomite shit coming your way. Ukraine destroys third bridge in Russia's curse. Zelensky stresses he'll keep territory. Following the Friday destruction of the strategic bridge in the Russian town Glashenko, which lies in Kursk Oblast, and the taking out of another bridge across the river Seine on Saturday, Ukraine attacked and damaged a third bridge in the same region, Moscow claimed. So like everything else, so yeah, more fighting has come in, so here's some of it. Hopefully it plays. If not, no worries, we go on to the next. But make no mistake about it, they are about to cut Ukraine off very shortly here. Okay, so you can see that a little bit. I can't really blow it up. But you can see quite clearly that they did blow up that bridge at the end of it. And like everything else, though, they are shifting the blame. Of course they are, because the U.S. will never admit that they blew up the Nord Stream or had friends in Europe. You know, NATO as a whole, because that's who their friends in Europe is, will never admit that they blew up the Nord Stream. They're going to throw Ukraine under the bus because Ukraine is not an official NATO member. They never did make him a NATO member, so they're throwing Zelensky under the bus, as this video goes into. Just like we've been saying.
Western politicians and media are having trouble picking a story and sticking to it. Initially, they said Russia was the main culprit behind the destruction of the Nord Stream pipeline.
Russia is most likely behind this. I'm 99% certain of it.
I think it's pretty clear. Someone did this, and the only people in that region who have both the motive
now they're saying
and the
it's Ukraine
capability to have done it are Russian forces.
Who sabotaged the Nord Stream 2 pipeline?
The Russians.
But it is likely that this is an act by Russia.
The assessment is that Russia was behind it.
Russia does have an undersea capability that would easily lay explosive devices by those pipelines.
But those were empty words lacking any proof to back up the accusations. In fact, if anything, the U.S. was the one making public statements about its plans to play with the pipeline as they see fit.
There will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
If Russia invades Ukraine, one way or another, Nord Stream 2 will not move forward.
I'm literally talking about rolling back the pipeline. And I loosely define that, but I mean taking action that will prevent it from ever becoming operational.
I think if President Putin moves on Ukraine, our expectation is that the pipeline will be suspended.
These pipelines, that is Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2, were not pumping gas into Europe at this time. Nord Stream 2 never became operational. That offers tremendous strategic opportunity.
Remember, Biden said he was going to get rid of it.
So, when the pipeline did blow up, there seems to be little doubt who did it. Even the former Polish minister expressed his deep gratitude to the U.S. after the
Biden
sabotage.
said he would end it, though, didn't
Thank
he?
you, USA. I thank Radosław Sikorski for the information about who is behind this terrorist attack targeting civilian infrastructure.
Oh, and let's not forget when a NATO explosive device was found near the pipeline back in 2015. Makes it hard to believe that Washington did not play a role in the operation. With all of this in mind, it's not surprising that the U.S. found it so difficult to investigate the matter, especially when the pipeline's destruction came in the midst of a serious energy crisis in the EU, America's greatest ally.
And who do you think was responsible for the Nord Stream pipeline explosion?
Well, whether it was, whether it was the U.S. instigating it or whether it was Ukraine and the U.S. gave the thumbs up, the U.S. was definitely in on this. So, why has this not been investigated? I mean, the UN has had many opportunities to investigate and the U.S. keeps slapping it down. Is there something fishy there? The fact that we keep suppressing an investigation, that's kind of, very implicating in and of itself. I think we know all we need to know here.
Since the disaster, their only course has been to blame Russia. But somehow, the narrative has now changed to pointing the finger at Ukraine. The story now goes, 6 drunk Ukrainians rented a yacht, sailed to the Baltic Sea, somehow without NATO's knowledge, and blew up one of the world's most critical energy supply infrastructures. After all, why would you make something like this up?
They want everyone to forget the inconvenient statements US leaders made about the importance of destroying the pipelines. They aim to shift the blame entirely onto their Ukrainian puppets, although they are fully aware that Kyiv will not take a single step without the go-ahead from Washington.
When you look at the timeline, the change of narrative seems calculated. US elections are coming up and Americans are tired of Ukraine as per new polls. It seems that the patience of Ukraine's Western allies is wearing thin.
So there you go. Patience was running thin. They're tired of hearing about Ukraine and support for Ukraine. Not to mention they're throwing Biden out. You know, I mean, Israeli state said, all right, enough of Biden. You know, Benjamin, not a Jew, came over here and said, all right, Biden, you need to step down. We want Harris to run. So, yeah, Israeli state is done with Ukraine. Israeli state sought to bypass foreign agent law to spread propaganda in the U.S. The Israeli government sought legal advice on how to bypass U.S. federal law governing the spread of propaganda among the U.S. population by foreign states. Investigation published Saturday by The Guardian in collaboration with journalists shows U.S. federal law requires the disclosure of foreign-backed lobbying campaigns, but leaked documents reviewed by The Guardian shows the Zionist government sought legal advice concerning the law out of the Zionist and Christian Zionist lobbying groups. Working in condition with the Israeli government would be required to register as foreign agents and disclose their ties to the Israeli state. So like everything else though, a lot of hypocrisy in that so-called law, right? Protests began at Democratic National Convention Center event interrupted. I saw this actually this morning when I was exercising at fitness, and it's hilarious. DNC welcome event was disrupted by pro-Palestinian activists. Serious disruptions are expected as tens of thousands of protesters arrived in Chicago. First disruptions protests already begun at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, which officially begins today and continues until Thursday. So, yeah, I seen some of this morning. So, it's happening. You're getting uproars of the people, man. And they're showing it right there at their convention. Deadly explosions rocks Tel Aviv. Israeli police are investigating whether the incident was terrorism related. Oh, it's terrorism when something happens to the terrorists, to the Israelis, right? But it's not terrorism when they do shit like this to Syria or Iraq. You know, some suicide bomber blows up something in Iraq. Oh, that's not a terrorist. Oh, what are they? Freedom fighters, right? You know, when they do it to Syria or Iraq, you know, how hypocritical, right? Israeli police are investigating an explosion in Tel Aviv, which killed one terrorist and injured another, because you may as well call these goddamn Israelis terrorists. Local media reported on Sunday the authorities suspect that the terrorist may have been killed in a botched suicide bombing. Now, like everything else, though, they do control Hamas, as you know, but this is a staged event, like most things are. You want to know who's behind the terrorism? Israelis. Mossad. ISIS, Mossad, all terror groups, Al-Nusra Front, etc., suicide bombings, Hamas, are all controlled by the Israeli government. The Israelis, the Zionists, Amalek is behind all of it. You know? So I guess there's more here. Although you don't see anything, you just hear it. Now, like everything else, though, Hezbollah is also getting more heavily involved in this war. Hezbollah says Israeli forces suffer casualties after infiltration in Lebanon repelled. Fighters from the Lebanese Hezbollah resistance movement shelled and fired a barrage of rockets at a group of Israeli forces as they were attempting to sneak across the border from the northern part of the 1948 occupied territories into southern Lebanon. Hezbollah said in a statement early Monday that its members carried out the operation after they closely monitored the Israeli terrorists that sought to infiltrate Lebanon in the Hadad Atta forest. The attack caused casualties and forced the Israeli terrorists to retreat, the resistance group noted. So, like everything else, it's increased. Israeli settlers befuddled. shaken by Tel Aviv attack. Bombing claimed by Hamas. Again, who controls Hamas? Israeli state. Highly intensely explosion ripped through the Tel Aviv-Leah road on Sunday, leaving casualties and creating more panic among the already baffled Israeli terrorists, because, you know, settling in land that isn't yours is terrorism as well. Explosion came amid the uneasy anticipation of retaliatory military operation over the assassination of top-ranking Axis of Resistance commanders in Tehran and Beirut that had paralyzed the Israeli regime and settlers in the past 3 weeks. You see, they're still getting repercussions for that, but this is nothing as compared to what's coming. Because remember, Iran really hasn't responded. This is just some of retaliatory from Lebanon. I got one more here before I close this out. Now, like everything else, so he does not get a lot of media coverage, and there's a reason why for that, but that's just because of the fact that they're really just running Harris and Trump, you know. But RFK Jr. makes a lot of points, but even if he were to elect it, he'd support the Zionists. The Zionists, the Amalekites, you know, they're the ones that run everything, so they own it all anyways. But like everything else, though, you know, they're not going to give him any media coverage, because the Kennedys really don't fall in line with anything that these... that's why they killed his father and his uncle. And he stated that on numerous occasions. Fix that.
Well, the media has never taken Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s candidacy seriously. They take every shot at him that they can think of because they want Democrats to continue to be in power. It's very clear. Now, a new Washington Post reports that RFK Jr. has kissed the ring of Kamala Harris, so to speak. Clearly, they're doing this because they are afraid that he will split the liberal vote away from the Democrats. So the Post reporting that he tried to meet with Kamala Harris and saying, well, he was trying to grovel for a place in the administration if he agrees to endorse her. According to the Post here, the Harris campaign ghosted him. They say the latest round of outreach follows earlier efforts to convince Democrats that Kennedy would make a better candidate than their Biden. Even after Kennedy left the Democratic nomination fight to pursue an independent campaign for president last November, his advisors continue to press the case privately that he should have replaced Biden as the nominee. So they say that because he secretly wanted that nomination and didn't get it, well, then he's just angling for breadcrumbs. But here's that supreme irony, is that Democrats never really were given the choice to vote for him in the primaries, and I argue he could have been actually a very formidable Democratic candidate for that party, but they had Biden pushed on them in the primaries, and then when the deep state decided that Biden couldn't win, they did a bait and switch, and they were stuck with Harris. So Democrats very well may have chosen him if the primaries were done fairly, which they weren't, or if the press took him seriously, which they never did. Now, the Post strangely says, here's how they know that Kennedy reached out to the Post, is he used connections in Hollywood. You would think his last name's Kennedy. Doesn't he have more direct routes to people in politics than Hollywood directors? But here's what they say, that his campaign reached out to Democratic intermediaries, including Hollywood talent agent Ari Emanuel and Rob Reiner, the director. Honey, what did Rob Reiner do? Like twins or whatever?
Sounds like horse shit, doesn't it?
Okay.
Or is that his dad? I always get that mixed up. He was a director. He's done a bunch of movies.
Yeah, like, what? That's how these things are. Rob
And
Reiner?
why would he care about Rob Reiner?
So also they're reporting that he had previously tried to reach out to Democrats through Airbnb founder Joe Gebbia, in an effort to get a message to Ron Klain, who was a longtime Biden advisor. So they're making him seem like this sort of spammy, like, hey, you know, connect me with so-and-so, like, you know, that guy who texts you, can you introduce me to so-and-so type thing, angling his way into powerful connections. Kennedy himself responded and said that this report was not true. So did his running mate, Nicole Shanahan. Here's what she says. She says, confirming we are not in talks with Harris. Speaking personally, they're a lost cause, literally. Now, here's what he says, and I actually really like what he had to say. You can seek this out on Twitter, because I know that doesn't look super good on your screen if you're watching on a mobile device. But he's saying that he would never have done this because the Democratic Party today would be unrecognizable to his father and uncle, and he cannot reconcile it with his values. He says the party that he once knew was the party of civil liberties and free speech, but now is the party of censorship, lockdowns, and medical coercion. The Democrats he knew were anti-war, but they are now neocon warmongers. True. His party that he knew and loved was the allies of mainstream cops, firefighters, and working people, but VP Harris's party is the party of big tech, big pharma, and Wall Street. Basically, yeah, what I have observed myself that Democrats now are the warring party of censorship and control. I cannot see it any other way. And he makes excellent points, but we don't get this in the press because the press has never taken him seriously. They would never have allowed Democrats to actually consider primarying him in against Joe Biden specifically because of his anti-vaccine take, which is not at all anti-vaccine. If you listen to what he says, he's not anti-vaccine. He wants us all to understand that vaccines are not properly tested. They are not tested for how they can or cannot work together. They are not tested in their accumulation. These are things we should want answers to, but the press doesn't want us to even ask it, so they continue to take fairly cheap shots at him, such as this weird.
And I have more on the longer version of this, by the way.
With a bear. I'm not going to go into it. It was a weird story about a bear and roadkill. You can easily find it for yourself. And if you do, watch his own explanation about it, which he posted to this Twitter on August 4th, where he explains it to Roseanne Barr. For some reason.
Yeah, it was weird.
She's just standing there. They never explain why he's telling it to her. But he does tell the story in its entirety. I have some questions about it. It's a bit of a strange story. I want to say unequivocally, it is not the thing that should make you decide how to vote. Is this bear story.
Right.
Anybody who is like, oh, well, I otherwise was gonna, but the bear thing, I just want to know how you prioritize your issues, because that to me is not it. But I think it's interesting to think about how the press will dig up all of these strange stories about his past, but we don't get very much about Kamala Harris's past. For instance, was she in fact a social climber? She dated Willie Brown and Montel Williams. Is that part of her personality? Can we say this about her? Why don't they dig about her past in the same way?
They put her on the front page of Time magazine.
Or this new front cover of Essence. Right.
Oh,
she's presented as this person with extreme gravitas. Here she's got a nice blowout. Her makeup looks good. She's looking optimistically towards the future. Right. We don't ever get images like this of RFK Jr. looking hopeful and powerful and things like that. If he wants that out there, he has to put it himself on Twitter. So I'm just observing these kind of threads that the press pulls in different manners for different parties. That's all I'm saying. Clearly, they think that RFK Jr. is more of a threat to Kamala Harris than he is to President Trump, and that's why they treat him this way. That's my derision. Let me know if you agree with me or not.
And like everything else, though, that so-called democracy, well, that was gone a long time ago. And like everything else, though, we know that this is not an arrest, but, these are just many things. But I really do see that there will be... Actually, I'm just going to go into 2 Ezra chapter 15, because this seems to be more based upon that, especially when we're talking about sedition and just everything leading up to it, because, again, we know that... civil unrest and all those things are what they're going to manufacture, especially if they do pull another fucking lockdown. People are tired of being fucking locked down, over this, because I think that a majority of people know that, that so far COVID was not really that big of a deal, and this other thing is like, well, wait a minute, I don't see it in stores on my body, why do I got a lockdown? I think that a lot of these people will refuse it. And also, I don't think they like either one of the candidates, a good portion of them, right? But, I digress, we're in the times now, as we get closer and closer to the very end. Because again, the national anthem has been fuck Joe Biden. Whether you say it as let's go Brandon or fuck Joe Biden, nobody fucking likes Joe Biden, which is why they've thrown him under the bus, and they're going with Harris, and they're going with Trump, and you'll never hear anything about RFK Jr. because, okay, RFK and JFK is another time period, and, if you know anything in the history about about JFK and who he really was in the past, you can see why they wouldn't want to run him anyways, So, getting into this, 2 Ezra chapter 15 and verse 14. Woe to the world and them that dwell therein. Because the third woe that cometh quickly, World War III, is around the corner. For the sword and the destruction draweth nigh. All these countries are forming a banner against Babylon, getting ready to come against Babylon. And one people shall stand up and fight against another with swords in their hands. In other words, civil unrest, right? For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings or princes. And the course of their actions shall stand in their power. And again, we also had an assassination attempt on Trump. Now, I know that was staged, but it's still, you know, that very much brings us out that they should not regard their kings or princes, right? Man shall desire to go into the city and shall not be able, you know, because of martial law, lockdowns. Because of their pride, the cities shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, men shall be afraid. Nothing but chaos. Man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but destroy their houses with the sword, and spoil their goods because of lack of bread and for great tribulation. In other words, it's dog eats dog, it's kill or be killed. That's what's coming. So hopefully this has been edifying. I got got more here in the longer length of this. So hopefully, you know, you'll tune in for that. Otherwise, you know, it's on to the next one. For that one, say Bracha Yahweh, Bracha Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem Rakakadash, Wa Abab Babal. Bracha Thum, Jehovah Elect. Shalom.